Supposed to start. Hey, that was faster than expected. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. We're here to discuss Wandavision. Regular Monday debrief going on for one more week because somehow we're going to wrap this all up in one episode.
Well, I have a theory.
Oh boy,
Jason Tyler, Dr.
Jason's
Comics.
been right so far, so let's see what he has. Let's see what he has to say today.
I think a lot of the things that we're waiting for this show to wrap up are actually season 2 plot.
Kevin Feige has said no season 2. It's all going to lead into Doctor Strange's next movie.
Well, maybe. I frankly don't believe him. And the reason why is I think that, like, for example, we have a lot of big crises going on right now. We have the Shield, the Sword guys. We have Wanda and Vision have to integrate with their other selves. We'll get to all that shit later. But Jimmy Woo's missing FBI guy, like that plot. Why is there a witch basement in the house right next door to Wanda's plot, which just coincidentally is where some big magic took place not that long ago? Like, there's a bunch of mysteries here, which from a game designer's perspective are setting up my next season. So that's my theory. But we'll see. I don't think the show knew it was going to get a second season. I think it's doing the big climax that Kevin is talking about. But I think that now that it has become a hit, they'll pick up those seeds for a second round.
Yeah, they just released a photograph of all the new pop figures coming out, and there's like 26 of them. Like, they've got specials. Like, this is going to be like a small little money train that they did not expect to have happen.
Yeah, I was amazed that they've already got pop figures of Agnes and the White Vision.
Yeah.
So it's like, boy, they're those people know how to capitalize on these things. They're on it.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is Baby Yoda came out and there was nothing to buy. There was like this incredible thirst for merchandise. It was right around Christmas time. I'm like, who wouldn't want to bring their kid home a Baby Yoda? And there was nothing for like 8 months. So I think Disney has learned their lesson.
The fact that I agree with you. The fact that there was no Baby Yoda for that Christmas was a huge missed opportunity.
I bought this.
Insane.
I bought this from a woman in China who made this like the episode, the day that Baby Yoda was seen. And I went looking to buy a Baby Yoda doll. There was none officially.
Well,
but somebody in China was willing to make me one. It only took me 2 months to get it.
The Baby Yoda incident was actually the second complaint I had ever had. The first time I complained about a missed opportunity was Dancing Baby Groot.
Oh,
there should have been Dancing Baby Groot toys the instant the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out.
For sure.
I did so many Dancing Baby Groot pieces of art and gave the originals. So I sold the originals because as quickly as I could draw them, people bought them from me.
That's great.
Missed opportunities that I don't think they're going to be missing on anytime soon.
No.
So yeah. But speaking of WandaVision,
yes. So I liked this last episode. It gave me a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. The show is making me think. And I'm just going to go off here for a few minutes, okay? I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So when Vision gave his big line, we all know the one we're talking about because it's been repeated endlessly on Twitter ever since, and people are drawing beautiful art from it and all kinds of stuff. When Vision talks to Wanda in that moment, there's a scene in every story. There's a moment in every story where the story or the storyteller tell you what the story is about. What is this story really about? Not the plot of these two people in this weird superhero situation, but what is the story really about? And in that moment, Vision talks to Wanda, and he helps her recontextualize and reimagine herself. Yes, you are a woman, you are a person who is in grief, but you are also a person who is in love. And that's kind of beautiful. And that ability to change the way you see yourself and the world around you is what the show is about. The show is about changing the way you perceive the world around you and yourself in it. Visually made clear with all the sitcom stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But thematically, in that moment where Wanda, and Olsen plays the scene very, very well. It's very subtle. It's very low key. But she looks over at Vision as he's laughing at the sitcom on the television. And she sees him in a new light in that moment. Because he's helped her to understand that there is something, she's still in pain. We're not ignoring that pain. But there's something beautiful in there that she can get through. And he helped her to see that. And then she sees him in a different way. This idea that it's all about kind of taking your pain and recontextualizing it in a way that lets you move forward without ignoring what happened to you, but integrating it with yourself in a kind of positive way. We have two protagonists here. We have Wanda and we have Vision. And there are two versions of each of them. There is Wanda and the Scarlet Witch, and there is Vision and there is Dead Vision, right? Mm-hmm. And both of these characters are going to have to integrate. Wanda must become the Scarlet Witch, which must become Wanda, and Vision has to face the fact that he has died twice, and he's going to have to integrate himself with Dead Vision, right? With the physical embodiment of Vision's own death.
Yeah.
And once they do, once those two characters integrate themselves, they'll be able to move forward. And I would love to see, whether we get it or not, I would love to see a second season that's Wanda and Vision living in the actual Westview, right? Well, like solving, like maybe it turns into something more like Murder, She Wrote, you know, or they're like solving weird crimes in this little town, you know, like solving the magical mysteries. And Agnes is still next door. She still has the witch basement, and all of the people in town are still there. But now our relationships with them are all different. They've all become different people than we know them, but also in some ways still the same, you know.
Yeah, that's Sue and Ralph. Sue and Ralph did in the comic we never got after 52.
Yeah. Anyway,
it would be hard to stay in Westview if everyone remembers that you had them in a weird sitcom reality. That could be strange, right?
Well, it was interesting when Wanda's driving into town. We see Westview, and it's kind of this rundown place, right? Like, was I the only person that got that vibe? Like, we saw town is kind of like the gazebo, the town square is kind of all boarded up, right? And
well, keep in mind where the timeline is.
Yeah,
you're talking. It's like a couple of days.
Yeah,
maybe a few weeks following everyone coming back from the snap.
Right.
So you're still having to deal with a lot of that.
Yeah. Anyway, I found it interesting that the place is kind of run down and it's a dying town. Dying town. How is that gonna manifest when this Wanda spell finally breaks? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've gone on. I'll let everybody else talk, but I just wanted to get a bunch of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Jim, you've been quiet and meditative over there this whole time. What are you thinking, sir?
Well, a lot of Jason's points were points that I come in already sort of. Like, I agree with many of the points. I don't think we're going to get Westview season 2. I think narratively speaking, I think the show has to end with Scarlet Witch and Vision parting ways.
Oh, really? You think so?
I think the angst and the agita of these two characters, I think the roads are just going to divulge.
I disagree, and I'm going to quote Wanda.
All right,
it's not that kind of show. Like when she's watching the sitcoms and Vision's like, how do you know that how is this funny and not sad? Because it's not that kind of show. I firmly believe that WandaVision is not that kind of show I'm describing. It is ultimately hopeful.
I think it will be hopeful, but I think it's going to be delayed gratification because the next time we see Scarlet Witch is going to be in the multiverse of madness, and madness doesn't presuppose I'm happy.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe this is the maybe what Feige is doing here in much the same way he told the Hulk story, not in a Hulk movie, but in various guest spots.
Yeah.
He told an overarching story of actualization.
Yeah.
Granted, we didn't see much of it because of the 5-year difference between Endgame and Infinity War.
Yeah.
But he told an overarching thematic story with the Hulk. Maybe Scarlet Witch's origin story is so big that it's going to be thematically told through Avengers, Civil War, this TV show, Doctor Strange, to some, I don't know, West Coast Avenger finale.
When we all watched Daredevil, and if you remember, at the end of the first season, like Matt and Karen break up, and we spend the whole second season with them broken up so they can get back together in the third season. Maybe it's like that, right? They're gonna break up Wanda and Vision, and we'll get the Simon Williams subplot, or who knows what. Yeah, who knows?
Well, doesn't someone in the MCU deserve a happy ending besides Steve Rogers?
Frankly, I'm like I said, I try not to suppose what they're going to do. I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
But there are things I would like to see. I want Wanda to be happy. She deserves it, especially with everything. We saw tragedy after tragedy in the last episode. And she's lost everyone. She deserves happiness.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that the writers would end the series. If they don't give her Vision, they should absolutely give her children. And especially with as important characters as those children are to future stories in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. We all want to see Young Avengers.
Everyone wants to see Young Avengers.
Well, like Young Avengers is the best property. It gives you all the it gives you all the archetypes of the Avengers, teenage angsty version, which is what Marvel does best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what Marvel Comics has done.
That's true.
Marvel Cinematic Universe does best the big, fantastic summer blockbuster, right? The CGI war movie.
Yeah.
So I think Dick Van Dyke gave us the ending.
How so?
Well, we have all been sort of postulating to some extent, Jacob a lot less, that there's another bad. Like Agatha Harkness is not the end game, and that there may be some other force. And the fact that Agatha sort of bumbles through this last episode, previously on, just trying to piece together what's happening here, and doesn't quite understand what the dynamics in place are. I think that we've been looking at Mephisto, we've been looking at like Magneto, all that nonsense. I think it's Nightmare.
Yeah.
Dick Van Dyke says it was like a nightmare.
Yeah. I
think at a certain point what's going to happen is this episode is going to introduce that actor that, Paul Bettany talked about, whoever is going to play Nightmare, as that sort of character, and that'll tie into Jason's plot points of, these things aren't adding up if Wanda is the architect.
Well, it's interesting. I love the shell game that this show is doing, because we were so convinced. I was ready to give up on there being a big bad guy. I was like, okay, maybe it's Wanda. Like by episode 5, or I think 5, I was saying this, like, okay, maybe it's Wanda, and I'm okay with that. And then episode 6, it's Agatha all along, and we're all like, oh, Agatha's the villain. But as it's clear from this last episode, Agatha is not the villain. Like, she's trying to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, she's an opportunist, if anything.
Yeah. And in fact, there's a good 50-50 chance here that Agatha ends up like Wanda's best frenemy by the time this show is over. Like, Agatha is probably she's going to say, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. Now, I have my own reasons for helping you. I'm a classic anti-hero. I'm doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons.
So do we think Agatha is the FBI person, or whoever Jimmy was looking for in Westview?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it could be, I guess. But it could be, but I don't think so.
Okay, that's just a thought.
I think the idea of Agatha being recontextualized as a frenemy of Wanda, goes more along the lines of her interpretation of the comics. Because my wife told to me, because I watched the show with her, and she goes, "Who the hell is Agatha Harkness? You've been talking about it for like 8 weeks. It's finally here. What the hell's going on?" And I'm like, well, Agatha Harkness is kind of like, she's like everyone's go-to governess. Like she shows up in Power Pack, which is a bunch of young kids, like 8 years old. She shows up in all these comics, and she's kind of the nanny that'll take you to hell to teach you a lesson.
That's right. Yeah, she's Mary Poppins.
Yeah, like it's like an unscrupulous Mary Poppins, right? Like has no problem tormenting kids as long as the end result, the crucible that they come through, they'll better people.
That's right. Yeah. Totally.
And they're like on the speed dial with Doctor Strange and Reed Richards and Invisible Woman call her up, like, watch my kid. I have to go fight Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
And in this role as Agatha Harkness as bad guy doesn't quite fit in with that milieu. I mean, right now she's strangling the kids, and I'm like, that is a total Agatha Harkness move.
Yeah, I also think, as much as I want Jacob to be right, I totally agree with you. I want the kids to live. I think ultimately they are going to play the card where the kids are not real. But there might be a way to make them real. And again, this would be my season 2 plot, right? Like the kids disappear because they were always a figment of Wanda's imagination, but maybe they're real out there somewhere in the multiverse. And now let's go find them, right? And there's my next 8 episodes.
Isn't that how Vision came back in the comics? After he was destroyed, came back as White Vision, then he ran into an alternate dimension Vision and kind of did a switcheroo with him to get his personality back?
Yeah, it's a terrible. I think it was a Mark. I think it was Mark Waid trying to fix the John Byrne plot. Like most of us think the White Vision is all John Byrne's doing. Byrne thought that the whole idea that Wanda and Vision could have a child was ridiculous because Vision is a toaster. Mm. So how can you possibly have sex with a toaster and have 2 children from it? Well, so he retconned that whole thing. He made Vision into more of an android, and we get the scene that the show obviously is drawing on when we get Vision all laid out on the table. And we get the children being made a distant of Wanda's imagination. But I think that later writers have understood that that's a terrible resolution to that storyline because the characters of Wiccan and Speed are so great, and other people use them, Billy and Tommy, before Wiccan and Speed showed up. There's a famous old The Last Avengers story, What If, in which Billy and Tommy show up with different powers. And it's just the universe is made more rich for having those characters in it. And so how can we make that happen? And the comics could just go to another universe and say, well, it's the alternate dimension version of Billy and Tommy, or an alternate dimension version of Vision and all that stuff. But that stuff doesn't hold up as well in the movies right now. We can say Multiverse of Madness is coming, and now that we've all watched Into the Spider-Verse, this idea of multiverses is we've all watched Legends of Tomorrow on television or whatever, like the idea of multiple universes is kind of more acceptable now. But there was a time not that long ago in movies where it wasn't, where it would have just been one leap too many for most people who don't get it. It just seems like weird.
I'm talking to the 2 guys from the Space Force podcast. Wasn't that the whole pretense of J.J. Abrams' trek?
Yes,
it's certainly the whole premise behind the Flash series. How many times have they crossed over with alternate dimensional?
Yep.
Goo?
Yeah, there were wasn't there like the Council of Infinite Wellses in that show?
Yeah,
the cross time Wells grouping. Yeah, so in the last 7, 8, 10 years, we've gotten a lot more used to this idea of multiple universes going on.
But it's something they haven't really established in the Marvel universe, though.
Yep.
So
I'm not necessarily sure if the multiverse as a creative conceit is a solid one.
Yeah.
Because it sort of moves away from consequences.
I agree totally.
Like now we can banish the kids. We can deconstruct them like puzzle pieces from a Joker Sada picture.
Yeah.
And just say, oh, in some other reality, this doesn't happen. Now go find your kids.
Yeah. Back in the old days when What If first started, when the comic What If first launched, every alternate version presented in What If always showed that outcome as being worse than the actual version that happened in Marvel Comics. And that was part of this story building that you're talking about, Jim. Like, you can have ultimate other universes, but it can't be a cop-out. It can't be a way to just make all the consequences go away. And that as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a television show maker, I'd be very hesitant to say that there's infinite universes with all these infinite worlds on it. It's easy and fun in comics, and even kind of necessary sometimes when you have to explain how Peter Parker is still just graduating from college when he's been around since 60, whatever, but in a film, it's not necessary. There's different mechanics, like actors get old. It's a different form, and the way that the form is made influences the kind of stories you tell with it.
And I kind of so we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. And
they grounded that in emotional realism, right?
Yeah.
So even though everything's fantastic and everything is designed differently, they all had emotional story arcs. Even Spider-Ham had an emotional story arc.
Yeah.
Of being able to accept friendship and not just always tell the joke, or that Spider-Noir could feel something other than pain.
Yeah.
They were simple, but they were grounded in that sort of emotional reality of actualization, and they were all on the same sort of journey. My concern is when we start introducing multiverse as a conceit, are we going to lose? I guess we're going to lose. My fear is that we're going to lose the plot and we're going to lose sight of the characters.
It's a huge challenge, and the people that are writing the Doctor Strange movie, I mean, all we have is a title. We know nothing else about it. It's a challenge on what to do.
I'm pretty sure it's all about Zorm.
Say again?
Pretty sure it's all about Zorm.
Zorm?
You don't remember Zorm?
No.
Jacob knows Zorm. Jim knows Zorm, don't you guys?
No,
that guy with the weird mask.
Yeah, he was a weird mask, and he was a character Morris introduced in X-Men. He was.
Oh, you're talking about Zorn? Oh, yes.
Zorn.
Yes. Okay.
That was a black hole in his head.
Yeah.
Okay, I know nothing about that character.
Well, good.
Okay.
You're not supposed to, because it's Magneto in disguise.
Yeah, but then they did Magneto. And go ahead.
And then Chuck Austin brought him back, and Chuck Austin makes everything a little worse.
Yeah.
Just like Justin Bieber. And so then Zorm was retconned to be this weird, ill-defined cosmic force. No one really knew what it was doing, but one day it killed everyone in Alpha Strike in a panel. And that was the
when hasn't someone killed Alpha Strike?
I collected every issue of Alpha Flight, I'll have you know.
Alpha Strike. Alpha Flight, sorry. I don't know why
back in the old days, I loved that book. I love that book.
I've never seen a run of Alpha Flight end where they didn't just kill them. It's just they need to stop. They need to stop bringing back Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight doesn't work. Nothing happens in Canada. Nothing happens in Canada.
My favorite one
in Canada.
I apologize for Jacob to all of our Canadians.
My favorite one is the new Avengers spinoff that started Omega Flight, which opens up with them all dead. And they're like, that's the opening page. And it's like, okay, now we're building the team back together from the dead.
All right, so what have we not touched on in WandaVision's episode yet?
White Vision.
Wanda's very sad life. The way they effectively but quickly and efficiently handled their falling in love. I think we've covered we plowed this field, guys.
Her empowerment scene where we saw the vision of the Scarlet Witch.
Right, that's right. So did anybody here besides me read the Scarlet Witch 12-issue series by what's his name, who did Starman? Robinson?
No, I did not read that.
So that's where this idea of a lineage of Scarlet Witches comes from.
Really?
And it's an interesting series. There's a bunch of callbacks to it in this book, in this show. Like, for example, when we see the leader of the witches fighting Agatha in the past, and she gets this sort of bluish crown that looks especially like the Scarlet Witch headdress, except blue. It looks virtually identical to the headdress Scarlet Witch wears in that comic, which is except blue. There's the Scarlet Witch is like a Phoenix Force apparently in Marvel Universe, which is interesting because Byrne is responsible for both the Phoenix, the terrible ending of the Phoenix saga, and when I say terrible, I mean the fact that the broccoli planet going supernova and killing all those people, and so now Phoenix has to die and all that. Anyway, sorry, off track. But then he did it again on Wanda, and we got evil Wanda, and we had this sort of subplot where all of these Byrne victims all these female characters get incredible powers which they cannot control. And this doesn't happen to male characters. When a male character gets incredible superpowers, unless you're Hal Jordan, you just kick ass with them. But if you're a female character in the in Byrne's hands, you become a villain. And so other people have sort of come back and rewritten this a lot, but in this show, we get this idea of the Scarlet Witch as a kind of folklore figure from the ancient past or something. That maybe there's there's been more than one of them, and they're this sort of foretold entity, like the Phoenix. Like you have all these powers and you can't control them. And that seems to be what they're building up here with Wanda. Which to me, that's where the setup to Doctor Strange comes, because now you have chaos magic, you're now the Scarlet Witch, and now you need somebody to teach you. And now this is where Cumberbatch shows up in the last few minutes, or the post-credit sequence, and says, somebody has to teach you magic, so you're coming with me, or I'll teach you if you want to learn, that kind of thing. By the way, Jim, you mentioned Paul Bettany saying who he was going to perform with. If you heard the latest theory, is he's talking about himself.
That is hilarious, and I love it.
Because he'll be playing both versions of the Vision in the same scene. Yeah.
You know what? If that is what it is, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I love me Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to go, but I think we've covered it pretty well. Yes, Jim, go ahead.
Did we want to talk about the potential mutant Powell situation with Wanda and Pietro manifesting their powers before being exposed to the Mind Stone?
Well, we don't know about Pietro, right?
We don't know about Pietro, but everyone who's been exposed to the Mind Stone prior to Loki using it on Hawkeye, everyone else has died. So we see the probability hacks when she's a child, and there's the red light like the toaster in the first episode.
Sure.
And Agatha comments, "Oh, this is a probability hacks."
Yeah,
she knows what it is.
I thought of Jacob. The minute she said that, I thought of Jacob, because Jacobs was like, "Hey, that's her original powers. Like that's the Scarlet Witch's powers are," and it was nice to see that callback.
Yes.
I'm just putting it out there. I don't think she's going to be related to Magneto, because we've now established that her parents are real people.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we're moving away from that, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I think we have to admit that Disney isn't quite sure what to do with the X-Men at this point.
I'm sure they'll figure it out, and then they will make a movie.
Yeah, they'll recast everybody, and they'll do a new version of the X-Men, and I'll be interested to see it. It could be good.
I imagine the entry point is going to be Rogue, because they already have Captain Marvel as a plot point, and now they can retell the Captain Marvel Rogue dynamic actually with Captain Marvel, right? So like Rogue sort of centerpieces the single original trilogy. Like she's the young girl character. She's the one the movie opens with. She's the one the movie closes with.
Yeah.
But a lot of fan complaints is, well, that's not my Rogue. She's not the dynamo. She's not the tough girl. She was the Kitty Pryde of that movie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now you can do that with recasting Rogue as the villain of Captain Marvel, and you can do the power stealing.
Maybe.
So I imagine that's how we can slowly start moving that dial. I don't think it's going to be with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
No.
Well, Jacob, if we're going to do Rogue, you know who has to come along with Rogue? Jacob, you know. Don't you know, Jacob?
I am drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
Don't you know, Cher?
It's talking about Gambit.
Gambit, the Bayou Ninja.
No.
I don't get much better than this.
I hate Gambit. Let me
count the ways.
let me just recount how many ways I hate Gambit. Gambit's a liar. Gambit is an asshole. The only reason Gambit constantly goes after Rogue is because he knows that Rogue will push him away, and and he's gonna sweet talk her up until the point where she finally controls her powers again, get her in bed, and leave her just like everyone else.
It's interesting that there is a whole generation of X-Men readers that consider Rogue and Gambit to be like their sweetheart couple. Like that
Jesus
is
Christ, no.
Every character is somebody's favorite character, Jacob. I have to stick up.
I get that.
Okay.
I get that.
Only real 90s
because
there
was the years of Kitty Pryde being everyone's favorite, and then pretty much she's basically replaced by Jubilee.
That's right.
Who comes in as the kid character. And I get it.
Okay.
But no.
To Jason's point, my sister, my own blood, sits there and writes Gambit Rogue / fiction, and has been doing it for like 20 years.
More power to her. That's awesome.
Do you want me to quote my Gambit history?
I don't think that would be wise, Jacob.
I think Mike's now just trolling him.
Mike is.
I will quote my Gambit history if you want to hear this.
You're gonna do it whether we want to or not, man. So hit it.
I'm not gonna force this on anyone unless you want to hear it.
I never had any interest. Gambit was sort of arrived at the comics kind of right after my time, right as I was kind of leaving the book.
I honestly, for me, is a variety of things. I found his powers are fine.
Yeah.
It's his background is just BS, and the niche that he fills was already filled by Storm.
Okay.
We didn't need another thief character who's even better thief than Storm,
right.
Who's been doing this since she was, 5?
Sure, yeah.
I'd like to point out that Fading Ghost Press has released Redneck Ninja, the RPG. The hack of the delightful in the RPG Honey Heist, with cover art by Mr. Jacob Blackman. Available now on itch.io and DriveThruRPG.
So Gambit paid for my first apartment. Like he's the one who, like, I had his first issue and I cashed it in for money to get the down, the first month and the last month's rent. That's the only way I could do it. So I have nothing but affinity for Gambit getting me out of my parents' house.
He stole you an apartment. Nice move, Gambit.
Yeah.
I applaud your use of Gambit.
If only Gambit could solve all homelessness problems in America.
But I'm looking forward. This has been a really great show. Like, I love WandaVision. I did not know what to expect going in. I love the central point of the show. I love what it's saying. I love the way it uses television to do it.
Yeah.
I love the meta nature of the show. I love that we saw Wanda watching the episodes that the screenwriters used to write the show. Mm-hmm. Agatha is incredibly charming. I want her to be not a good guy, but I want her to be a recurring character. Marvel is very good at making these sympathetic antagonists, right? Like Vulture, and other characters that we root for, even though they're the bad guys. I want Agatha to be like Wanda's rival / friend, the person that she likes, even though she knows she shouldn't.
What do you think is going to happen with Monica Rambeau, who was oddly absent?
Well,
I have a feeling that's because she was having to deal with Pietro, as we saw in the last post-credit scene.
There's a big physical conflict coming up here. Like, I know we've had a lot of kind of, soap opera drama and that stuff, but at some point you've got an army of sword agents, and the superheroes are going to have to stop them, right? Hayward is going to go berserk or something. He's going to try to blow up the entire town, something ridiculously mustache twirling. Order robot vision, order dead vision to kill everyone.
Zombie vision.
Yeah, zombie vision. Good. Yes, zombie vision. That's TM. Okay, so and the heroes are going to have to stop him. And Photon, Monica Rambeau, and hopefully Wu and Darcy, whom I still adore, will have a big role in helping that happen. I also want to see Wanda and her I want to see the two Wandas and the two Visions integrate. I want to see the good Vision physically go inside Zombie Vision and integrate Wanda's memories with the physical. Wanda can't bring Vision back to life. Hayward's done that for her. All she has to do is put Vision's mind back in the body, back in Bull. We all remember the old Steve Martin movie, right? Like, just put the mind back in the body and we're good to go. And that's what I want to see happen. I want a happy ending, and I think we can still get one. I know Jim's shaking his head. This is our goals. Like, when we watch these shows, I'm the eternal optimist, thinking this show is going to be good, and Jim's like, "We're going to time travel their fucking way out of this thing," and I'm like, "No, don't make it so." Like, that's what we do.
Yeah. I imagine there's going to be heartbreak when the doctor shows up.
Well, if it was your show, that's how you would totally write it, Jim.
Yeah. Like, I'm the guy who would end Wally like 10 minutes early when Wally's like a dead robot.
Yeah.
He has no memory of self. Like, I don't want that movie, but that's how I would have made the movie.
You monster.
See?
Like, I know myself.
This guy's my best friend. I don't know what I did wrong.
It would just take a slight push to make you just like him.
Yeah.
You're the yin to his yang. The shadow.
Not too many heartbreaks.
When you get your superhero powers, Jason, he'll be your arch enemy.
We are not so different. I want to be am I the beer hero or the champagne villain? I think that knowing Jim's got to be the beer hero and I'll be the champagne villain.
There we go.
Maybe the beards are the source of your power.
Well, it'll come off in summer, so I hope not.
All right. I don't have a joke for that, so maybe we should go ahead and wrap up. I just want to point out Bruce Timm once drew Scarlet Witch, and God bless him, it looks great.
Yeah, just lots of great Scarlet Witch art out there. And the best thing about this show might be the fact that Scarlet Witch and Vision are getting fans.
Yeah,
they're getting devoted, loyal fans who aren't watching the Avengers. They're watching the Scarlet Witch and the Vision show, which I love.
If you had told me 20 years ago there were going to be Thor fans, there were going to be Ant-Man fans, there were going to be people who watched Ant-Man sequels.
Yes.
There are going to be people who were fans of Hawkeye. Yeah,
Is anybody else hearing about Kang the Conqueror being in an Ant-Man sequel and wondering what the hell's going on there?
It makes sense that they mess with time. Kang always shows up when they mess with time.
Honestly, that was my theory after watching Endgame. Is the next big bad because Thanos is taken care of. The next big bad is going to be Kang because they messed with time. It's going to be Kang.
If you're going to bring in Kang, it's a short hop to alternate timelines, which brings you back to the multiverse of madness.
Yep.
It all mixes together the way they do at Marvel. But they have to fuck up sometime soon. They've had this successful run of movies for over a decade now. At some point, it's got to fall apart, right?
Well, I think it's they keep reaffirming the fact that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all of those original creators in the first decade of Marvel focused on human characters in larger-than-life situations. Right. It was the fact that you can empathize with the person behind the mask and see their problems, like Spider-Man trying to make ends meet and trying to save Aunt May and fight the lizard. Like, the lizard's the cool thing that gets you in when you're a kid. But you can really identify later in life with Spider-Man, Peter Parker struggling to live up to his Aunt May's standards. There's the fact that he's the Spider-Man.
There's an observation somebody made about one of the artists that was working on Avengers for a long time. I can't remember who it was. And he noted that every time he drew Captain America in the Avengers, he always was the only person that didn't have his mask on. Captain America was just the blonde guy. Like, he was just the guy. And he became the leader identification character. He was the normal person in this house full of crazy people, right? Gods and armored wonders and all kinds of crazy stuff. But Cap would be walking around going, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, like he was the human face. And this is kind of, I think you're right, Jim. Alan Moore once observed that Stan Lee didn't make three-dimensional characters, but even two-dimensional characters was a huge improvement over what comic books had been in the past, right? Like they were two-dimensional, but that alone was a vast improvement.
And the nice thing is the reader brings that dimension, the identification to the character, and that's what we're doing. Like we don't have fully realized individuals, we have ideas of what people are like in these Marvel movies, and it's the audience that brings that another element to the reading experience or the viewing experience.
Isn't it a bummer they're not capitalizing with any of the successful movies and TV shows with comic book tie-ins? You liked WandaVision, hey, here's an annual series that'll, be the same characters in the same world. Instead, you got to well, there's parts of this story and this trade paperback, and this trade paperback, and this one over here. You can't really go to your newsstand. Go ahead, sorry.
Marvel tried this. Marvel tried this with the X-Men movies. When the X-Men films came out, there were all of these comic book tie-ins. There was an Ian McKellen Magneto story. There was a Rogue comic that was tied into the films. There were they did, and they all bombed. Like nobody bought them, or at least nobody bought them that wasn't already buying every other X-Men. And so if the point was to increase readership, was to reach out and grab new audiences, it didn't work. Now, there's a big difference between then and now, and that difference is Comixology and Marvel Unlimited, right? Back then, if somebody wanted to read if they liked Rogue, and Jim's exactly right, she was the hero of that movie. If they liked Rogue and they wanted to read that Rogue and a Penguin's Rogue, not the Rogue from that we know of, but the Rogue from that movie, they had to go to a comic book store and buy it from the direct market. And that's a really big barrier to entry for a lot of people. Like they don't even know where a comic book store is, let alone actually go in there, which a place that's infamously misogynistic and hostile to women readers.
Sticky carpet.
But now you can just buy it off of Amazon, right? And you can get a PDF of that comic.
I don't know.
Well, and now the company can curate and be like, you liked the Vision. Here's this Vision story from the 80s. It's not the exact same thing, but it's a spiritual success. Like it's like one of the reasons, one of the stories they pulled from.
If you like this movie, read Tom King's Vision.
Yeah.
It's maybe we're asking for too much. I mean, they're already branching successfully into TV, which has kind of been. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of did it, but now we've actually got the full Marvel experience on our televisions.
Yeah.
So maybe baby steps, but it's been a good one. And you guys will do this again next Monday. We'll do a debrief on. Apparently, it's going to be the longest episode, the finale, and we'll see what happens.
Considering everything they have to tie up, I would be surprised if it's not an extra long episode.
I'll be there.
It's 47 minutes.
47 minutes.
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, all right.
I don't actually know. I'm just saying because of how short the episodes are. And once it starts, it's like, why are you done?
Well, there's something to be said for leaving the audience wanting more. But they said it was going to be 10 hours of the whole season. This is episode 9. Every episode up until today has been 30 minutes or so. This last one was 40. So I think we're going to be an hour and a half. But we'll find out in less than a week. So
yeah.
And I like your pocket square there, Jason.
Thank you.
It's a nice affectation.
It's delightful.
To everyone watching us on Facebook and YouTube, appreciate you checking us out. And we'll catch you next time on the BAMF Podcast.